the second part of economic factors of development, which is credit, capital, and aid. Now, credit, capital, and aid are very similar, but they're not the same thing. They're all related to money coming in from foreign countries. So capital refers to all of the material and physical resources that are required in an economy. And credit refers to the amount of money. And aid is money coming in from elsewhere, but it's given as a form of help. So capital in all forms is used to foster growth, and capital can be given in the form of aid. And I'll talk about a few examples of where it has worked and where it hasn't worked. So, yeah. And also, under credit, we can talk about microfinance, which is small institutes providing... yes. Okay. So the first case study I want to talk about is called Feed the Future. It's an initiative by USAID. It's a program that partners with countries and their agricultural sectors, and they work towards fighting hunger. Now, they team up with nonprofits, businesses, and individuals to make an immediate difference. But the reason this has had such a big impact is because they make a long-term difference by focusing on well-being and empowering the governments that are participating to make their private sectors of agriculture self-sufficient. So it was especially effective during the Ebola outbreak in 2014 in Sierra Leone and Liberia. So when there was a lot of food insecurity in these countries, Feed the Future stimulated the private sector by distributing cash transfers. And also they hosted something called agricultural seed banks and input fairs, where farmers could acquire seeds, yes, from this organization. They also work in Bangladesh. They worked a lot in COVID-19 for food security. And again, they give food support with foreign aid. It also provides access to healthier diets in Bangladesh. Oh, okay. And then the next initiative is called Selective Integrated Reading Activity, and this is specific to Mali. And one of Mali's main economic aims is to lower poverty rates and to boost literacy. Now, this goes hand in hand with poverty because aid was used to alleviate poverty in a form by boosting literacy rates, for which they had success of boosting adult literacy rates by 3%. Yeah. And I want to talk about a more general case study, which is Pacific Island nations. Now, I want to talk about green finance. So Pacific Island nations, what's different about economic development in these countries is that their economies are a lot less globalized. They're more localized than the other case studies which we will refer to in capital and aid. So when we talk about capital and aid, there are a lot of non-success stories because sometimes aid can be embezzled or other stuff can happen. But in these nations, because of having a more localized economy, one thing that has really helped is green finance, which is enhancing their economic and social environments with the purpose of improving infrastructure and reducing the impact of natural disasters, because these nations are specifically susceptible to natural disasters, which is an added barrier in reaching a point of economic development. So, like, these can include cyclones, floods, storms, tidal waves, and drought. And a lot of, so a lot of the population in these countries lives in rural areas and informal settlements, and they lack basic economic, social, and financial infrastructure. And they're also very much dependent on agriculture. And again, because of climate change, natural disasters keep getting worse. So they've benefited from billions of dollars of foreign development assistance, and most of this is channeled into green infrastructure projects such as draining and irrigation, building seawalls, better roads, and to provide access to rural communities. Yes, that's it.
So I will be talking about the negative impact of humanitarian aid and how humanitarian aid sometimes doesn't help and make the situation even worse, or just doesn't help. So foreign aid can be given because of various reasons. For example, because of ethics and you genuinely want to help a country to develop, or because of economic reasons to like your economic interests in the country. So you like a developed country will help another country to develop so they can have trade with them or get the resources of this country. And this is also the economic reasons for foreign aid could also be connected to tied aid. So tied aid is foreign aid that must be tied on goods and services produced in the country that is providing the aid. So that would look like the US is giving aid to another country, and the money, for example, $5 billion. So a big amount of these $5 billion will be given to companies in the US producing goods, which then will be exported to the country which the aid goes to support the country there to develop. So in this case, the economy of the US is actually benefiting from that, since there's more goods produced and more money within the US economy in that case. Yes, so main problems that will lead to a failure of humanitarian aid will be corruption, since when the aid is given to a country and the leaders which the money goes to are corrupt and just take all the money, no money will be actually used to develop. Then a lack of follow-up, which will be a lot of times a country gives humanitarian aid to a country and then just give it and then we are done. And they don't look if that actually helped, what could be improved next time, what actually happened, where did the money go to. So there's just no follow-up afterwards. Then also a distance relationship. So there's no communication between donor and recipient. So that means in many cases the donor country actually has no connection to the country that the money goes to, or the goods and services. So they don't know what the situation is there. They don't actually know what the people need and want to make their situation better. So they just give something they think is good for the developing country, and there's no communication between them. There's no actual connection. So there are two things, like donations provide a temporary fix, whereas training and helping building connections to the world market could empower development. So giving something and then, I will talk about this in case studies as well. And then humanitarian aid actually can contribute to a weakening of the state and also the weakening of local organizations, since when the aid is tied to the economic of the donor country, the organizations that try to develop the country within the country get weakened because their work has been done by organization and companies outside of the country. So I have the case study of Haiti. After the earthquake, the US was giving a huge, US aid was giving a huge amount of money and good, especially food, to Haiti, flooding the local economy and market with their goods. And because they were given as aid, the food from the US was way cheaper. So everyone bought the US, or got the US goods. So the economy of Haiti and the local companies and local organizations actually were harmed a lot because they couldn't produce on their own, so their whole economy was destroyed by this US aid. Yes, and also only like 56.6% of the money went actually to companies inside the US to produce the goods. So it maybe helped more the US than actually Haiti. Another case study is Namibia, and there is a company called Zambif, which provides produces food especially, and there is the European financing partners, and a big bank in Europe gave 35 million euros of loan to this company to improve. Their goals were create new jobs, make the local economy stronger, and make the food supply in this country better. However, so there were two things. There was a farm created of palm trees for palm oil, and there were actually very, very few jobs created since they built a huge, with the money, they built a huge technical support to water the trees and all of this. So there were actually only very few jobs created. Also because of the farmland that needed to be created, local people were displaced. Moreover, there was a negative environmental impact since there was a bog before, and they had to drain it. And actually, a lot of money went into draining the bog, into improving and making the farmland fertile. Yes, there was another farm which was created, and the same things happened, and they also cut off the local way to the hospital for the community there. So there was actually a case where a young girl died because they didn't let the family pass through the farm to reach the hospital in time. So it actually had a big negative impact on the local people there. And all their promises didn't got fulfilled. When the farm was built, the company also promised the community there to improve their infrastructure, to build schools, but all of this never happened. Yeah. So at the end, this huge amount of money didn't actually reach the local community there. There were not many jobs created. The local, there was displacement. There was an environmental impact. They also needed to start to use fertilizers, which never happened before in this area because it was, a new and more, less native way of farming. This case study is also covered in a video which is in the slideshow. It's the long documentary which is shared on the glopo.info.
Do I talk into that? Okay, yes. So, as Anya mentioned, about microfinance, I shall first define microfinance. It's defined as the financial services provided to low-income individuals or groups who are typically excluded from traditional banking. So now, microfinance was founded in Bangladesh. So what the entire idea behind it was that when they mean individuals, a lot of the times banks don't want to give out loans to people. Don't intend to give out loans to people who might not have a lot of collateral or land or other assets that they can use in case of the fact that they might not be able to repay, that's collateral, or or like usually they, even if they do give it, they usually give it to men, and women are usually excluded from the entire banking sector as a whole. So microfinance was initially, well, it still is a method used to alleviate poverty. So after 1971, after like the entire liberation war, Bangladesh's economy like was in absolute shambles. There were like thousands of people in poverty. So then Yunus, Dr. Yunus, he was the one who introduced the concept, had thought of a way to loan out small amounts of money to people. So he started off with loaning out money to beggars, and he thought of them as like entrepreneurial people, because the way he was thinking was that beggars go from door to door to door. So if they had, say, merchandise, they could essentially sell that merchandise. He thought of them as entrepreneurial people, as like the door to door salesmen. So he gave them small loans as small as I think $45, and then had allowed them to buy merchandise that they could sell. And then he said that this helped them with decision-making skills, because some houses they went to as beggars, and some houses that they went to as salesmen would start selling their merchandise. Now, when I mean merchandise, it could mean things like jams or shoes and other products like that. Now, like as I mentioned, it did help them with their decision-making ability, but it also, at the end of the day, they were able to sell enough that he said that in, I think, 2018 or 2016, that they were able to get 22,000 people out of poverty. And now since he saw that poverty was so rampant, he wondered why, and like short answer is capitalism. He saw that there was like an entire system in place in which people were excluded from the chance to better their economic status. They were not given the opportunities. They were not given the proper resources or the proper training to make the decisions that they needed to. So then he founded Brak Bank, and Arong, which is Arong is essentially this like organization that takes local women, like their handiwork and everything, and sells them to the mass market. So they're just like a mediator between the people and the market. So a lot of the work is like handiworks, and like a lot of things related to jute, because jute was was called the golden export in the 70s. So it's still very popular today, and they've branched out to many different sort of industries. Like they have their own clothes, shoes, even like food products and everything. They even have their own banking institution, their own universities, and it's a very big thing, all in favor of helping the poor people get to a better economic status. And then he also thought of besides poverty, what are the other issues that Bangladesh deals with? And then he came with like energy, there's like an entire energy crisis. So then he had a business to make solar panels and sell them to people. He also thought of he also had a collaboration with Adidas, I believe, to make shoes more affordable. And the logic behind this was that a lot of parasitic diseases can transmit directly by human contact. So by making shoes, I think less than €1, that it would be a lot more affordable for them to be safe, essentially, so that these diseases don't get to them directly. And because a lot of people, due to health reasons, aren't going to their work or jobs and have to drop out, and if they don't get a proper education, again, they're not going to have like a stable future. And then all of the things I mentioned so far fall under the social business category. And now social business is a business that is there to solve problems that might affect the society, and there is no profit generated, and money can be taken out of it. So since there's no profit, people can give money, and if they believe that it's not working out, they can take out of it. But any money that's generated is poured back into the business. It works as a non-profit of sorts. And then other ways he also thought of, because he was all about bettering the status of these people. So it could be also in other forms where water fresh water coming to villages and so on and so forth. And so, but even though microfinance has helped a lot of people, there is still like a lot of drawbacks to it. Like since these people are like a lot at like a higher risk because they might not necessarily have the capital to use as collateral, their loan the interest rates are extremely high. Like I saw that I'll forget Bangladesh, even in a developed country like Madrid, the interest rates were up from 3,600 to 60%. And at that point, if so much of the income they're generating is gone to repaying the loan, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can better their economic status. Another thing to be mentioned is that these were targeted towards women, but a lot of the times what happens is that their husbands or their families take the loan under the woman's name, but then it doesn't necessarily mean that the woman is allowed to use that money for herself or her own business. And a lot of the times it doesn't even necessarily mean better decision-making capabilities, because they're still not allowed to make household decisions regarding, say, the fans or the lights or tables, and they're still not allowed to leave the house as much. So it doesn't necessarily mean empowerment of women. There's also another stigma is that I had read this case about this one woman who was a jute exporter. So she had her own factory and everything, independent from her husband. And then what happened was that she already had a loan and she wanted to take out another loan. But since she was a woman, they wanted more collateral, higher interest rates. And at some point in time, they were badgering the husband, saying, "Oh, why is your wife trying to expand her business so much?" And this woman already employed so many families and exported to foreign countries. But even then, that was still not credible enough. She was more than legible to get the loan. So microfinance does not necessarily, it does help people in poverty, but unless the socio-political climate is improved, it won't help as many people as it could. That's it. Yay.